All right, guys, so this is going to be a blood work review of my own blood work. And the thing is, for me, I want to be as open and as honest as possible about this as well, because I want it to see as an opportunity to educate people, as well as to yes, what are the potential side effects of using PEDs, but also how we can mitigate them and certain things that we should be looking out for as well, and potentially what supplementation we can use to also mitigate a lot of the potential side effects that come across with that. Now, I put this out there for educational purposes only as well, and it's my own experiences as a coach and as an athlete and how to do that. So none of this should be taken as the gospel, but it's definitely coming from quite a long experience within this field. So I'm coming off the back of a contest prep of around 20 weeks, in which my PED cycle was around 20 weeks long. I'd also ran bloods prior to starting that contest cycle and prior to starting the PEDs. So we can have a comparison, and that's also important as well, is not just looking at the metric and the data as a one, but also how that's been trending over time. Now, I've used Randox for the last sort of 3 or 4 years, so I have a data built up over the last 3 or 4 years of my blood work, so I can see particular trends that may be moving in the right or even the wrong direction. So that's important to do. So don't just take one metric by itself. It's all relative, and it's all within the circumstances of where you are at, where you were beforehand. So coming back to these bloods, I was very happy with these as well, considering the PED usage and coming out the back end of it, being 5 weeks post-show. Things are looking good, and the certain things that I've been looking to try and increase, that you'll talk through, have got a lot better as well, which I believe through some of the supplementation I've been using. So the blood panel itself is fairly comprehensive, which you'll see. I'm not going to go through everything because a lot of the stuff is just green lights, but there'll be certain things to pick out on that I need to look out for a little bit closer, but also more than likely, if you're using, you'll need to look out for. So we'll start with the body analysis side of things. It does your body fat percentages. That's always a little bit skeptical as to what that is. But one of the main ones we're looking at is blood pressure. And as you can see, my blood pressure is sitting in a very good spot. I think it's 111/75. The threshold usually above 120/80 is something that starts to cause a little bit of concern. But as open bodybuilders that are putting a lot of muscle on, potentially using PEDs that are going to increase that blood pressure, this is something we need to watch out for. This is one of the main factors, I would say, that causes health concerns within the enhanced realm is blood pressure. Because we take our body weight so heavy, it's very, very important to look out for this sort of stuff and manage it as well. Now, what helps manage it? A lot of people will jump straight for medications to do that, but realistically, that should be your last option. That should be further down the line. Supplementation helps, but really keeping your body fat and your body weight intact, not letting it shoot up. Post-show, people eat a hell of a lot of food, they retain a hell of a lot of water, their blood pressure goes through the roof. That is an issue. That is a major, major issue. It starts causing kidney and liver damage when you do that as well. So thinking about how you control your post-show period, how much fluid you're carrying, how much body weight is actually necessary as well. But also keeping some cardiovascular work in there, keeping your diet quote unquote clean, not letting your body weight completely shoot up. These are things that will help regulate and manage that. So obviously that's something I'm very pleased with, and I've never really had any blood pressure issues whatsoever. Another interesting thing is my BMI. Obviously I'm falling into the obese to probably morbidly obese category, which is funny, obviously. On the outside you're looking at it going, well, I've got lines in my glutes and I've got a six-pack and lines in my quads, and people disregard BMI, but it's somewhat of an important factor. Yes, if as an athlete, if you carry more muscle, your BMI will be that much higher. But remember, it's still a cause for health concerns to some point down the line. A bigger body, it means your heart is having to work that much harder. So we just have to be realistic and understanding that when we push your body weight up to certain degrees, it's not the most healthiest thing. And yes, although we're carrying muscle, that muscle is metabolically active. Every time we're walking or moving, your heart's having to work that little bit harder. So I would say even somebody that's the same weight but is mostly fat, they're probably less at risk of certain things than somebody that has a lot of muscle tissue on there, although the other factors around it are inherently much more healthy. So Randox always has a look at your own nutritional health, your blood sugar management over the course of HbA1c is usually your blood sensitivity, insulin sensitivity over the course of 6 months. It's a presetter for what potentially type 2 diabetes, but again, all those things in a very good spot as well. For nutritional health, obviously I supplement a lot with vitamins, minerals, but I also eat a very well balanced, nutritionally dense diet as well, which again, diet and lifestyle factors will offset a lot of the potential negatives that come alongside PED usage. And that's why I find it interesting when people who are kind of on the outside of things go, steroids are bad. And yes, they are. They have negative side effects. I certainly do not hide away or shy away from that. But your other lifestyle factors and how well you manage them will have such an impact. So as you can see there, HbA1c, blood glucose well managed. I would expect that, to be fair, coming out the back end of a prep. But certainly later into the off season, it's something that's worth looking at again. Bone health, mineral health, all that sort of things. Again, like in a very, very good place. So these are something that is well managed through a lot of time nutritional and lifestyle factors alone. Then we're going to go into kidney and liver health, which these are things again that I would be looking for as a PED user to see, right, where are things lying? Because again, these are basically from your cardiovascular health, your kidney and your liver health are the things that you should be, I think, having a really close eye on. So let's get into the juicier things. So my red blood cell count. Now again, for some PED users, red blood cell count will be a cause for concern, particularly when you're using certain compounds, potentially like equipoise, that can increase your hemocrat, increase your hemoglobin. As an athlete as well, generally it's something to look out for. I know a lot of people will go down the bloodletting route. As you can see, mine falls like well within range there. It's all green lights. Again, something I'm very happy with. I remember a couple of years back, I did have a few issues with my hemocrat. So that's basically the thickness of your blood. And I had to go and actually privately donate blood because you don't want that building up. Obviously over time, if that blood gets that much thicker, again, it's a cause for concern. But in this case, we're in a very, very good place as well. And I believe like some of that cardiovascular health as well has been a contributing factor towards that. Then we've got things like iron status, all those very much in play as well. And again, that just comes down to a good, nutritious and healthy lifestyle for the most part. Now to me, one of the main things I needed to watch out for, but certainly the majority of PED users need to watch out for, is cholesterol. Now cholesterol, there's a lot of varying different beliefs in terms of the impact on cholesterol and health. I would say it's still a pretty major factor, in terms of overall cardiovascular health. For me, my HDL cholesterol has always been something that I've had an issue with even prior to using PEDs. Again, the standard of what is acceptable has changed. For like the NHS, we're wanting for males above 1 nanomoles essentially in the blood. Now what you'll see here is mine's at like 0.98, so it's still slightly below. However, if we look back at the trend as well, beforehand, before even starting my cycle for my competition prep, it was much lower. So how has that went up? Because usually when we're using PEDs, it will start degrading degrading your HDL markers as well, which obviously has an impact on your overall total cholesterol. Now in my case, I was very, very heavy on the health supplementation this year. My whole of my prep, I used high grade omega-3s, omega-6s. I've used vitamin D3, K2. I used some of the heart health products as well from Elevate, which I highly recommend. I used the cholesterol management one, and I actually used retatrutide. We've seen good, I would say, research to suggest that retatrutide, yes, it has the fat loss benefit or the fat aid benefit. Now, I didn't use it for that specific purpose. I didn't use it until post-show, really, but it has an impact on cholesterol management, which I've seen an impact from. So it's certainly worth considering and something that I will consider going forward. But to me, this is a good sign that it's jumped up so much, and I have a way of actually managing it and mitigating it as well. Now, overall, my total cholesterol is in a good place. So that's usually the ratio between your LDL, which is your quote-unquote bad cholesterol, and your HDL, which is your quote-unquote good cholesterol. Now, LDL can be managed a lot of time through diet. Again, some PEDs will raise that LDL, but because of the overall total cholesterol, you're usually in a pretty good place. So I look at these and I go, I'm happy with these. I'm seeing an upward trajectory and a positive factor, but I'm also seeing my LDL being well managed, usually through my diet, my nutrition, my cardiovascular activity, but also I have mitigated a lot of the factors that would lead to my HDL degrading as well. So that's something that I will continue to do throughout this push-up phase and probably continue to do throughout the rest of my life, if I'm honest with you as well, because cardiovascular health or ill health is one of the biggest killers of men in the UK. So, when we're starting to use PEDs, we have to be realistic with ourselves and go, there is a trade-off. If you're going to dance with the devil, you might get burnt. So you got to take steps to try and mitigate them factors. But overall, very happy with that. So I'm going to give a shout out to Elevate Supplements. It's not something, I wouldn't be shouting it out if I didn't think it was any use and didn't have an impact, but it very much has. But obviously there's plenty of other nutritional, I don't get sponsored from them, so there's plenty of other like nutrition places you can go to get that, but the panels are good. EGFR is a very good one to look at. Again, mine's in a great spot. So again, I supplement with liver and kidney supplementation as well to help aid that too. But again, it's also the type in the PEDs and your duration of the PEDs that you're using for as well will make an impact on your overall health there. But again, that's something to very much look out for. Now, there's things that can affect that. on a day-to-day basis. Dehydration can affect the alcohol intake, which really is an aspiring bodybuilder we probably shouldn't be taking very much, if any of. Also training as well. So like when you're breaking muscle down, that will cause sometimes creatine kinase numbers to go up within the bloodstream. So it can kind of mask certain readings as well. So I would always suggest before you go and get your bloods taken, that have a couple of days off training so you're getting a true reflection of what those markers are. Now, one of the things that I have to look out for, and it's something that's not a massive cause of concern for me, but my ALT marker, I believe, is slightly off. So you can see there it's in the amber rather than the green, but it's not in the red. So that's something I'll just have to keep a little bit of an eye on as I go forward, and something that I'll check in around 8 weeks time, because it's not something that I've seen out before, and it's not something that I necessarily expected to see out. So it's something that I will keep a close eye on over the course of the next while here as well. And then we'll go on to thyroid. So basically your TSH, your T3 and T4 levels. So this will be a good indicator for a lot of people of how healthy their metabolism is. Now, why mine are out is during my contest prep and then post show, I was still on some T3 and T4. You'll find a lot of PED users will utilize this as a way of keeping the metabolism functioning fairly well and consistently throughout a prep. Now, even with it, even throughout my off season, I will continue to use T4. It has an impact in terms of using it alongside growth hormone. So if you're using growth hormone, it's probably a fairly good idea to utilize T4 to some extent. So you'll see that being slightly elevated. You'll see the TSH being slightly low, and the T3, because I'm just tapering off that now, being elevated as well. But what you'll find is it's a bit like putting TRT testosterone in your system. Your body no longer needs to necessarily, or will shut down its own production of that hormone. So you'll see that's why TSH is on the lower side. So again, over time, I would taper off T3. Potentially you would taper off T4 as well, depending if you're using growth hormone or not. So you'll see that's why those sort of markers are out. But again, it's something to look out for. It's something to be aware, especially even when you're dosing your T3 and T4, as to where you have that. Because again, do you want it super high, that it's ramping through and burning out muscle? Or do you want it in a place that's basically within a physiological range? Is probably for most people a pretty good shout. And then the final marker that I'm going to talk about is my testosterone levels. So you can see it's pretty high. It's a lot higher than I expected it to be. So when I came off my contest prep cycle, I stayed on 250 milligrams of testosterone and enanthate per week. So it's certainly not a TRT range. A TRT range for most males would probably be somewhere in the region of 100 to 125 milligrams per week. As an aspiring bodybuilder, I understand that I have probably super physiological levels of muscle mass now. So in order to hold that tissue, I will keep a little bit extra testosterone in. And again, understanding that with that, there are potential trade-offs. We never bury our head in the sands. We should know exactly what we're doing and the potential side effects that come alongside that. However, at 250 milligrams of testosterone per week, I would expect it not to be in the high 80s. So is it a bad thing? Not necessarily, looking at the rest of the blood work. But again, if I was to go down to a proper TRT dose, I'd have to adjust that accordingly. Why is it converting so highly? The minute I'm super sensitive, I'm super lean. So it will help with the conversion of that to testosterone, you will tend to find. So again, it's not a massive concern of mine, but it's something that going forward now into this off-season push-up, I will have to gauge my amount of testosterone usage. Because again, if I start going very, very high and ramping my testosterone through the roof, it will have a trade-off in terms of probably the estrogen as well, because I've had estrogenic issues in the past when I've taken testosterone levels up that little bit. But overall, fairly happy with the blood work. There's a couple of markers there that I will be keeping an eye on as I go through. Certainly that liver enzyme number, but also very much concentrating on my cholesterol numbers as well. Because again, these for me are something that I've always had to be very aware of in the past. And as I say, I'm happy they're going up, but I want them to continue to stay in a good pace. Because honestly, health, longevity in general is obviously one of my main priorities, but also balancing that alongside my bodybuilding goals. And I think we have to be aware that, a lot of the time when we are pushing things in this extreme sport, which it very much is, and we're going down the route of anabolics, there are some things that will be traded off, but we want to have as little of a trade-off on that side of things as absolutely possible, because a healthy body, a well-functioning body, is a body that will grow, is a body that will respond, is a body that can get to stage and do it not just for a couple of years, but do it for as long as our bodies and our minds and as long as we want to. So guys, hopefully you enjoyed that. Hopefully you took something from it. Again, as I say, it's not a doctor. I'm not a doctor. It's literally my own experiences on it, my own education on it, and my own advice from somebody that's done it for a long time as well. But I do recommend, if you are going down the route of using PEDs, get blood work done, get it done regularly, supplement well, talk to somebody that knows what they're actually talking about to guide you in the right direction. But guys, if you liked it, leave me a comment. Any questions as well, obviously leave it in the comment box below, and give it a subscribe and a share.